Open your cerebral cortex and shift your lobes into upper beta phase, because you are going to have Bitcoin knowledge transmitted directly into your vestibulocochlear. Your host at Bitcoin Knowledge is Trace Mayer, an early Bitcoin advocate since it cost $0.25, but this is not intended to be investment advice. A doctor of jurisprudence, but this is definitely not legal advice. And an investor in core cryptocurrency infrastructure, including Armory, BitPay, Kraken, and Mitagio, but this is not a recommendation of those services. Here, you get fed via direct mind download with pure and free Bitcoin knowledge.
Hi, I'm Max Keiser. This is the Keiser Report. Welcome back. So, listen, I've got a fantastic guest, Trace Mayer. Trace Mayer, welcome back to the Keiser Report.
Hey, glad to be here.
Okay. And now, Trace is extremely buoyant because he made some prognostications a while ago about the future of Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies, and he's been proven absolutely correct. Last time Trace was on our show, we talked about the geopolitical significance of Bitcoin and crypto. And since that time, Trace, we've seen developments in Russia, Japan, and other countries. I think the Russian development is quite interesting. Vitalik over there at Ethereum, a face-to-face meeting with Vladimir Putin. This is kind of what we were talking about last time you were on Keiser Report. What's your current thinking on this? What's going on?
Yeah, I mean, we're seeing it across the globe. Bitcoin's being either legalized or there's bespoke legislation being passed to encourage it in pretty much every major country and lots of not so major countries. The Isle of Man has bespoke legislation specifically for Bitcoin and blockchain technology. Then we have legalization in Japan. We have Russia, the United States. We have a lot of our South American countries. China even has been fairly friendly in dealing with their exchanges there. So it's not being banned. Witches aren't being burned. Which is they're not going after. They're not putting Galileo under house arrest for doing math. And that's really what Bitcoin is. It's just math, right? So we're at least we're seeing that there's this drive towards regeneration. Deciding that we're going to accept and use and innovate and allow the fostering of this industry as opposed to all-out persecution of it.
All right. You tend to give folks the big picture. You're very well-read, very someone who's also involved in looking at the history of innovation and monetary theory and money. And this, as you point out, is math. And, going back centuries, innovation and technology has driven geopolitical development and tensions and resolutions. And I love the way you kind of encapsulate the history, a kind of a potted version of the past 500 years of history and innovation and monetary theory. I don't want to put you on the spot, but if you can kind of walk us through again, how you see this playing out.
Yeah, so I mean, we had the move from the agricultural age to the industrial age. At the start of that, we had the invention of double entry bookkeeping. We had the rise of fiat currencies, fractional reserve banking. Isaac Newton and the other polymaths were definitely involved in all of this. He invented the gold standard. Copernicus wrote treatises on interest. Manuel Swedenborg, the head of mining up in Sweden, the father of neuroscience, a great anatomist, he was adamantly opposed to fiat currency and in favor of gold and silver. We had the Continental Revolution, the French Revolution. We saw this, even something as small as the stirrup, that allowed knights to be on horses. It changed the battlefield of Europe. And then the longbow got invented that made knights obsolete. And then we had gunpowder and we had the printing press. And then we had Columbus, who discovered the trade winds, which allowed the build out of America. And so likewise, Satoshi with Bitcoin has discovered the trade winds of cypherspace. It's the holy grail that the cypherpunks have been after. And now that we're able to reduce data, reduce value into data itself and transfer it over a communications channel using our latest IT infrastructure, now we're going to be able to build out smart contracts. We're going to be able to build out cypherspace. It's going to be a huge innovation. And at the heart of it, it's triple entry bookkeeping. Just like we had an accounting revolution at the start of the industrial age, we're having an accounting revolution at the start of the information age. And so things like derivatives and how we value all this stuff and fiat currency and fractional reserve banking and not having transparency and not having atomic swaps and like failure to delivers and all these problems with our financial system that require bailouts, like the sun's rising on all of that. And
Okay.
that's just going to have to just go away. It's just not going to be feasible anymore.
All right, let me just drill down to one phrase there, reduce value to data. Now, we're here at the Freedom Fest in Las Vegas, and I see a lot of gold bugs here, and the gold community is still, I would say, 80 or 90% anti-Bitcoin, anti-crypto. They consider themselves to be the holy grail of value. Only they believe gold, that gold is the true arbiter of value. What's it going to take to convert the gold bugs? Do we just ignore the gold bugs? What do we do with the gold bugs? Trace Mayer.
You introduced me as perhaps the world's foremost expert on gold and Bitcoin when we did that geopolitical podcast. My blog was Run to Gold, for crying out loud. I am a gold bug, and I've brought a lot of the gold bugs into Bitcoin. At the end of the day, we're dealing with a technological innovation here. Gold is the same thing it was 2,000 years ago. It's not extensible. Commodity money is great. It's limited in amount, but it's not extensible. Fiat currency is extensible. That's why we were able to transfer value over a wire telegraph, right? And that's where we got a wire transfer from. But guess what? Fiat currency is not limited in amount. Well, now with cryptocurrency, we have both the ability to make it limited in amount and to transfer it over a communications channel. And we have the extensibility. So we get the best of all of them and none of the problems.
But
with
it's
either
funny
of them.
was last year, actually the supply of gold in the world through mining was up 6%. And the supply of Bitcoin, of course, has been reduced via the protocol.
Yeah.
So this idea that there's a lot of, cryptocurrencies out there is kind of bogus in that the protocol actually is designed to reduce the number. Of course, let me put my Peter Schiff hat on for a second, who will say, what about all these other crypto coins? There's 800 of them. You can just create a crypto coin out of nowhere. There's nothing to stop you from doing it. Trace, what do you say to faux Peter Schiff?
Yeah, so when Bitcoin was $7, I was at an investment conference in Palm Springs, and I'd just done an interview, and we had all the equipment set up, and guess who happened to walk by? Peter Schiff. And so I being a fan of Peter Schiff, I went up and we started talking and everything, and we're like, well, why don't we do an interview about Bitcoin, and we can educate the audience and everything about it? And he was like, well, I don't want you to make me look stupid. And I thought this was about educating the audience, not about our own personal egos,
speaking
right?
about personal egos, I got to ask you this. Okay, we'll get into Peter Schiff later. Okay, you were in Acapulco with our friend down in Acapulco.
Berwick.
Jeff Berwick. And apparently there was some fireworks on stage between you and Roger Ver over the blockchain. We're not beyond being catty on this show, and talk about the gossip. But what was that debate about? Because now we have a resolution, right, in the scaling debate. So what were the issues going into it, and where are we now, Trace?
Yeah, so the issue is mainly about activating SegWit or not. And we talked about, we're building out Cypherspace. And guess what? These protocols are becoming the constitutions of Cypherspace. And the cement is not dry yet. That means we get to put stuff in there or take stuff out. And personally, being a fairly crypto-anarchist capitalist, libertarian, I want the constitutions to be very protective of human freedom. Well, there are vested interests that don't. And blockchain could be a chain, to really bind humanity with. And I don't really want to see that happen. Well, SegWit is a huge innovation in helping protect our monetary sovereignty. Making sure that Bitcoin doesn't become a chain around us.
According to the Wikipedia page on Roger Ver, his thought, I'm not going to paraphrase here, but he wants to go into a hard fork quickly because to keep ahead of a state actor who may get into the blockchain business and put the cypherpunk movement out of business.
Why do a hard fork if you don't have to?
Well, that's
because soft forks are backwardsly compatible. So why do a hard fork if you don't have to? And SegWit, we're able to do it as a soft fork that's backwardsly compatible. And it was interesting. Roger actually said, I'm in favor of all these things that SegWit does, but I'm not in favor of SegWit. So there's a little bit of cognitive dissonance there. I don't know why. At the end of the day, it looks like SegWit's going to be activated and enforced by the end of August. So It's kind of a moot point anyways.
Okay, well, we'll have Roger on too, and with big respect for Roger, he's big pillar in the community.
Yeah, I love Roger. We've been in the community publicly evangelizing it. I was a little bit earlier, January of 2011. That's when he bought his first Bitcoins, but otherwise we've been around this for a long time together. And, you know, we can disagree. We can butt heads. It doesn't mean that we can't be friends.
Is there something bigger
everything.
than this? And we can call it game theory. And isn't this the biggest experiment in game theory we've seen ever? In other words, leading into this scaling debate, it seems that what's happened is the incentivization of all parties involved prevailed at the end of the day, and the special interests were unable to co-opt the movement or the chain, if you will. And this is really an insight, I guess, that either Satoshi understood it or didn't understand it. But game theory, at the end of the day, the Nash equilibrium is winning the day.
Yeah, it's fascinating to see this sociological experiment on a massive scale with Bitcoin taking place. I think that's what we're seeing with people like Peter Schiff and a lot of people who kind of downplay it as cognitive dissonance. And Bitcoin is just this massive experiment of revealing cognitive dissonance, and people like come and butt their head against Bitcoin and eventually split their head open.
They split their head before the chain gets split.
Before the chain gets split.
Right.
And
I think that's what we've seen.
And that's
split heads.
And that's we're cracking heads. And so it's like, you got to leave your ego at the door with Bitcoin. Like you got to leave it at the door. And yeah, there's definitely game theory. There is economic incentive at work. It is a sight to behold. I mean, there have already been thousands of academic papers written about this thing. I think we're going to see tons of them, not just in the math and the cryptography and the finance, but in the sociology, the psychology, game theory. We could see a lot of academic papers looking at this in terms of a case study, because it's just been so fascinating to watch everything happen. I mean, it's just been unbelievable.
Yeah, it's amazing for you to say that, because
I got a front row seat.
Yeah, you got a front row seat. I mean, you've been participating in every facet of this development for years now, and you were saying earlier that it's even moving too fast for someone like yourself, who's really like completely immersed in this, and it's
with a profit motive,
right?
Yeah, I mean, and it's so fascinating how it works. Like I did an interview with Berwick, so user-activated soft fork BIP 148. It had maybe 200 nodes, and I did an interview with Berwick. And then I actually went and did a humanitarian trip and didn't have internet access for 3 weeks because I'm in the middle of nowhere. And I come back and the interview's had 157,000 views, and the top of all the news sites for the last 3 weeks has been BIP 148. And there's this massive amount of like political pressure on the miners, and everybody's coalescing around BIP 148. And we get this threat of the chain forking, and I mean, all I did was like pull the pin out of the grenade, roll it in the miners' boardroom, and like go on vacation.
Another grenade, Trace. All right,
well, makes it fun, right?
Kind of out of time. So if people want to follow you and catch up on things, where do they find you?
So at Trace Mayer on Twitter, and then I also host the Bitcoin Knowledge Podcast, where I interview all the CEOs and other top people in the Bitcoin space. So it's fun to hear what they have to say.
All right, cool. Well, thanks for being on the show.
Yeah, thanks, Max.
All right, well, that's going to do it for this edition of the Keiser Report with me, Max Keiser, and Stacey Herbert. I'd like to thank our guest, Trace Mayer. And if you want to catch us on Twitter, it's Keiser Report. Until next time, bye, y'all.
Be sure to get a copy of the free Bitcoin Guide at freebitcoinguide.com. Got a question or suggestion? Record your voice at bitcoin.kn. Don't be shy. To help the show, share Bitcoin.kn with friends, post about it on Reddit, and otherwise spam the interwebs. Your iTunes comments and 5-star reviews are very important to us. Please continue tuning in to the Bitcoin Knowledge Podcast, where we release interviews with the top people in the Bitcoin world. Now take some choline and let that Bitcoin knowledge consolidate.